Möngke Khan, Mongolian, Möngke Khan / born Mongke, January 10, 1209, August 11, 1259, was the fourth great Khan of the Mongol Empire, ruling from July 1, 1251, to August 11, 1259. He was the first great Khan from the Toluid line and made significant reforms to improve the administration of the empire during his reign. Under Mongke, the Mongols conquered Iraq and Syria as well as the kingdom of Nanzhao. Mongke was born on January 10, 1209, as the eldest son of Genghis Khan's teenaged son Tolui and Sorghaghtani. Teb Tengri Khokhcuu, the powerful shaman, saw in the stars a great future for the child and bestowed on him the name Mongke, eternal in the Mongolian language. His uncle Ögedei's childless queen Angqui raised him at her ordo, nomadic palace. Ögedei instructed Persian scholar Idi-dan Muhammed to teach writing to Mongke. On his way back home after the conquest of the Mongolian Empire, Genghis Khan performed a ceremony on his grandsons Mongke and qaγan after their first hunting in 1224 near the Ila River. Mongke was 11 years old, and with his brother, qaγan, killed a rabbit and an antelope. Their grandfather smeared fat from the killed animals onto their middle fingers following the Mongol tradition. In 1230, Mongke went to war for the first time, following Ögedei Khan and his father Tolui into battle against the Jurchen Jin dynasty. Tolui died in 1232, and Ögedei appointed Sorghaghtani head of the Toluid appanage. Following the Mongol custom, Mongke inherited at least one of his father's wives, ᠮᠠᠩᠬᠡ of the Oirat clan. Mongke deeply loved her and gave special favor to her elder daughter, Shirin. Battle of Möngke, on April 11, 1241, in which Mongke might have participated. Ögedei dispatched him along with his relatives to attack the Kipchaks, Russians, and Bulgars in the west in 1235. When the most formidable Kipchak chief, Bachman, fled to an island in the Volga Delta, Mongke crossed the river and captured him. When he ordered Bachman to bend down on his knees, Bachman refused and was executed by Mongke's brother Bjik. Mongke also engaged in hand-to-hand combat in the sieges of Russian cities. While his cousins, Shaban and Buri, went to Crimea, Mongke and qaγan, a son of Ögedei, were ordered to reduce the tribes in the Caucasus. The Mongols captured the Alani capital Maghaz and massacred its inhabitants. Many chiefs of the Alans and Circassians surrendered to Mongke. After the conquest of Europe, Mongke would bring them back to Mongolia. He also participated in the conquest of Kiev in 1240. Mongke was apparently taken by the splendor of Kiev and offered the city surrender, but his envoys were killed. After Batu's army joined Mongke's soldiers, they sacked the city. He also fought alongside Batu at the Battle of Möngke. In the summer of 1241, before the premature end of the campaign, Mongke returned home after his uncle Ögedei recalled him in the winter of 1240–41. However, Ögedei died. In 1246, Temür Gedkayhan, Genghis Khan's sole remaining brother, unsuccessfully tried to seize the throne without confirmation by a Kurultai. The new qaγan Gyuyuk entrusted the delicate task of trying at qaγan to Mongke and Ögedei Khan, the eldest brother of Batu. Gyuyuk eventually died en route to the west in 1248 and Batu and Mongke emerged as main contenders. The Toluid Revolution. Following his mother Sorghaghtani's advice, Mongke went to the Golden Horde to meet Batu, who was afflicted with gout. Citation needed. Batu decided to support his election and called a Kurultai at Alabama Kamak. The leader of the families of Genghis Khan's brothers, and several important generals, came to the Kurultai. Gyuyuk's sons Nukwa and Ko attended briefly but then left. Despite vehement objections from Bala, Ögedei's scribe, the Kurultai approved Mongke. Given its limited attendance and location, this Kurultai was of questionable validity. Batu sent Mongke under the protection of his brothers, Berk and Chukatema, and his son Sartak to assemble a formal Kurultai at Kodo Aral in Mongolia. When Sorghaghtani and Berk organized a second Kurultai on July 1, 1251, the assembled throng proclaimed Mongke the great Khan of the Mongol Empire, and a few of the Ögedei and Chagatai princes, such as his cousin qaγan and the deposed Khan Kara Hulgu, acknowledged the decision. Shortly thereafter, Ogul's son Koa and Ögedei's favorite grandson Shiramun came to pay homage to Mongke as the new ruler, but they brought the entire army of the Ögedei faction with them. Citation needed. Mongke's Angqui falconer, Keshig, discovered the preparations for the attack and told his lord. At the end of the investigation under his father's loyal servant Mengzenoyan, he found his relatives guilty but at first wanted to give them mercy as written in the Great Yasa. Mongke's officials opposed it and then he began to punish his relatives. The trials took place in all parts of the empire from Mongolia and China in the east to Afghanistan and Iraq in the west. Mongke and Batu's brother Berke therefore arranged to have Ogul accused of using black magic against Mongke. After she was arrested and questioned by Sorghaghtani, Ogul Kamish was sewn up into a sack and tossed into a river and drowned. The traditional Mongol punishment for using black magic. Estimates of the deaths of aristocrats, officials, and Mongol commanders include Ögedei, Yesu Mongke, Buri, and Shiramun and range from 77 to 300. Most of the princes of Genghis' blood involved in the plot, however, were given some form of exile. The anti-Mongke plot of a new Uyghur scribe, Bala, and the Edict Salandi, the monarch of the Uyghurs, was discovered and they were publicly executed. After his accession to the throne in 1251, Mongke announced that he would follow his ancestors but would not imitate the ways of other countries. To increase his legitimacy, in 1252 he retroactively awarded his father the title of Great Khan, qaγan. Mongke shared the western part of the empire with his ally Batu Khan, ensuring the unity of the empire. Mongke's mother Sorghaghtani died in 1252. After the defeat of the Ögedei and Sorghaghtani families, Mongke eliminated their estates and assigned acquiescent family members new territories either in Turkestan or in northwest China. After the Bloody Purge, Mongke ordered a general amnesty for prisoners and captives. In another move to consolidate his power, Mongke gave his brothers Kublai and Hulagu supervisory powers in North China and Iran. Rumors spread that his brother Kublai founded a de facto independent Ulus district, and perhaps took for himself some of the tax receipts that should by rights be coming to Karakoram. In 1257 the emperor sent 2 tax inspectors to audit Kublai's official. They found fault, listed 142 breaches of regulations, accused Chinese officials, and even had some executed. Kublai's office was abolished. Mongke's authority took over the collection of all taxes in Kublai's estates. As his Confucian and Buddhist advisors pointed out, Kublai first sent his wives to the court of qaγan and then appealed to Mongke in person. They embraced in tears and Mongke forgave his brother. Mongol imperialism. Mongke drafted his own decrees and kept close watch on their revision. Mongke forbade practices of extravagant costs of the Borjigin and non-Borjigid nobles. He also limited gifts to the princes, converting them into regular salaries, and made the merchants subject to taxes. Mongke limited notorious abuses and sent imperial investigators to supervise the business of the merchants who were sponsored by the Mongols. He prohibited them from using the imperial relay stations, yam, root, and paisas, tablets that gave the bearer authority to demand goods and services from civilian populations. Citation needed. With Gyuyuk dead, many local officials no longer wanted to pay off the paper drafts used by Gyuyuk. Mongke recognized that if he did not meet the financial obligations of Gyuyuk, it would make merchants reluctant to continue business with the Mongols. Mongke paid out all drafts drawn by high-ranking Mongol elites to these merchants. At-Malik Juvayni stated, and from what book of history has it been read or heard that a king paid the debt of another king? The generals and princes, including his son, who allowed their troops to plunder civilians without authorization were repeatedly punished by Möngke Khan. He used North Chinese, Muslim, and Uyghur officials. The qagan's chief judge, Darugaki, was the Jade-Jalera official Mengzeze, while the chief scribe was the Kerat Bulghai, who was a Christian. 9 of the 16 chief provincial officials of Möngke Khan were certainly Muslims. He reappointed Gyuyuk's 3 officials, Mahmud-Ulavashi in China, Masud Beg in Turkestan, and Arghanaga of the Oirat in Persia. Mongke separated the position of the great judge at court from that of chief scribe. In 1253, Mönch established the Department of Monetary Affairs to control the issuance of paper money in order to eliminate the overissue of the currency by Mongol and non-Mongol nobles. Since the reign of Great Khan Ögedei, his authority established united measure based on suk or silver ingot. However, the Mongols allowed their foreign subjects to mint coins in the denominations and use weight they traditionally used. During the reigns of Ögedei, Gyuyuk, and Mongke, Mongol coinage increased with gold and silver coinage in Central Asia and copper and silver coins in the Caucasus, Iran, and Bulgaria. In 1252–59, Mönch conducted a census of the Mongol Empire, including Iran, Afghanistan, Georgia, Armenia, Russia, Central Asia, and North China. While the census of China was completed in 1252, Novgorod in the far northwest was not counted until winter 1258–59. There was an uprising in Novgorod against Mongol rule in 1257, but Alexander Nevsky forced the city to submit to the Mongol census and taxation. The new census counted not only households but also the number of men aged 15 to 60 and the number of fields, livestock, vineyards, and orchards. Within the civilian register, craftsmen were listed separately, while in the military registers auxiliary and regular households were distinguished. Clergy of the approved religions were separated and not counted. When the new register was completed, one copy was sent to Karakoram and one copy kept for the local administration. Mönch tried to create a fixed poll tax collected by imperial agents that could be forwarded to the needy units. Initially, the maximum rate was fixed at 10 to 11 gold dinars in the Middle East and 6 to 7 tals of silver in China. Protests from the landlord classes reduced this relatively low rate to 6 to 7 dinars and tals. Some officials raised the top rate on the wealthy of 500 dinars. While the reform did not lighten the tax burden, it made the payments more predictable. Even so, the census and their aggressive taxation it facilitated sparked popular riots and resistance in the western districts. In 1259, the Georgian king David Nairing revolted, unsuccessfully, against the Mongols and then fled to Kutaisi, whence he reigned over western Georgia, Imereti, as a de facto separate ruler. In 1261, he gave shelter to David Sevenalu, who had later attempted to end the Mongol dominance. David Alu made peace with the Mongols, however, and returned to Tbilisi in 1262. Mönch and Batu's official, qaγan, harshly punished the Georgian and Armenian nobles, plundering their cities and executing their prominent leaders. He divided the Georgians into 6 tumans. Meanwhile, Bayu crushed the rebellion of the Seljuk Sultan Qağan near Angqi in 1256 and re-established Mongol authority over eastern Turkey. By that time the Kashmiris had revolted, and Mönch appointed his generals, Salih and Tukida, to replace the court and a Buddhist master, Otoki, as Darugaki to Kashmir. However, the Kashmiri king killed Otoki at Srinagar. Salih invaded again, killing the king, and put down the rebellion, after which the country remained subject to the Mongol Empire for many years. Religious policy. Mönch confirmed Gyuyuk's appointment of Hayan as chief of all the Buddhists in the Mongol Empire in 1251. In 1253 Namu from Kashmir was made chief of all the Buddhist monks in the empire. During the conquest of Tibet in 1252–53, all Buddhist clergy were exempted from taxation. The Tibetan Karma Pakshi received Mönch's patronage. Mönch had been impressed by the aged Taoist monk Khokhcuu, who met his grandfather Genghis Khan in Afghanistan. Mönch made Lizicheng chief of the Taoists. However, the Taoists had exploited their wealth and status by seizing Buddhist temples. Mönch demanded that the Taoists cease their denigration of Buddhism. Mönch ordered Kublai to end the clerical strife between the Taoists and Buddhists in his territory. Kublai called a conference of Taoist and Buddhist leaders in early 1258. At the conference, the Taoist claim was officially declared refuted, and Kublai forcibly converted their 237 temples to Buddhism and destroyed all copies of the fraudulent texts. Despite his conquests of the Abbasid Caliphate and the Ismailis, Mönch favored Muslim perceptions. He and Hulagu made the Shiite community at Najaf an autonomous tax-exempt ecclesiastical polity. Like his predecessors, he exempted clerics, monks, churches, mosques, monasteries, and doctors from taxation. During Mönch's reign, the French King Louis IX sent William of Rubruck as a diplomat seeking an alliance with the Mongols against the Muslims. By that time Mönch's qaγan Ögedei was already dead. After making the French envoy wait for many months, Mönch officially received William Rubruck on May 24, 1254. Rubruck informed him that he had come to spread the word of Jesus Christ. Then he stayed to help the Christians in Karakoram and attended debates among rival religions organized by the Mongols. Möngke Khan summoned William Rubruck to send him back home in 1255. He told Rubruck, "We Mongols believe in one God, by whom we live and die." He then continued, "Just as God gave different fingers to the hand, so has he given different ways to men. To you God has given the scriptures and you Christians do not observe them." He explained God had given the Mongols their shamans. Mönch offered Louis IX his cooperation but warned all Christians that if, when you hear and understand the decree of the eternal God, you are unwilling to pay attention and believe it. And in this confidence you bring an army against us, we know what we can do. Ambassadors from the Latin Empire and the Empire of Nicaea came to the Mongol court to negotiate terms with Möngke Khan as well. In 1252 King Hethum I of Lesser Armenia began his journey to Mongolia. He brought many sumptuous presents and met with Mönch at Karakoram. He had an audience with Mönch on September 13, 1254. Advised the qaγan on Christian matters in Western Asia, and obtained from Mönch documents guaranteeing the inviolability of his person and his kingdom. Hethum asked the qaγan and his officials to convert to Christianity. In reply, Mönch explained that he wished his subjects to truly worship the Messiah, but he could not force them to change their religion. Mönch also informed Hethum that he was preparing to mount an attack on Baghdad and that he would remit Jerusalem to the Christians if they collaborated with him. Hethum strongly encouraged other crusaders to follow his example and submit to Mongol overlordship, but he persuaded only his son-in-law Bohemond I, ruler of the Principality of Antioch and County of Tripoli, who offered his own submission sometime in the 1250s. The armies of the Armenian Kingdom of Cilicia and Bohemond I would assist Mönch's army in the west soon. Mongol shamans played an important role in the court and sometimes influenced the war preparation period of conquests. As qaγan, Mönch seemed to take the legacy of world conquest he had inherited much more seriously than Hegyuayuk. His conquests were all directed at East Asia and the Middle East. In his first plans for additional conquests, Mönch chose Korea and the Dali Kingdom in Yunnan in 1252. Mönch sent envoys to Goryeo, announcing his coronation in October 1251. He also demanded that King Gojong submit before him in person and to move his headquarters from Gangwon to the mainland of Korea. But the Goryeo court refused to send the king because he was elderly and unable to travel so far. Mönch dispatched his envoys with specific tasks again. The envoys were well received by the Goryeo officials, but they criticized the Goryeo officials because their king did not follow his overlord Mönch's orders. Mönch ordered Prince Yeku to command the army against Korea. However, a Korean in the court of Mönch convinced them to begin their campaign in July 1253. Yeku, along with Amukhan, demanded that the Goryeo court surrender. The court refused but did not resist the Mongols and gathered the peasantry into mountain fortresses and islands. Working together with the Goryeo commanders who had joined the Mongols, Jalaitai Korchi ravaged Korea. When one of Yeku's envoys arrived, Gojong personally met him at his new palace. The king Gojong sent his stepson as hostage to Mongolia. The Mongols agreed to a ceasefire in January 1254. Mönch realized that the hostage was not the blood prince of the Goryeo dynasty and blamed the Goryeo court for deceiving him. Mönch's commander Jalaitai devastated much of Goryeo and took 206,800 captives in 1254. Famine and despair forced peasants to surrender to the Mongols. They established a Chilyaki office at Yonghang with local officials, ordering defectors to build ships. The Mongols began attacking the coastal islands from 1255 on. In the Liaodong Peninsula, the Mongols formed Korean defectors into a colony of eventually 5,000 households. In 1258 the king and the Cho clan retainer Kim Jun staged a counter-coup, assassinated the head of the Cho family, and sued for peace. When the Goryeo court sent the future King Wonjung of Goryeo as hostage to the Mongol court and promised to return to Gaejeong, the Mongols withdrew from Korea, Dali, Vietnam and Tibet. Mönch concerned himself more with the war in China, outflanking the Song dynasty through the conquest of the kingdom of Dali, in modern Yunnan, in 1254 and an invasion of Indochina, which allowed the Mongols to invade from the north, west, and south. Möngke Khan dispatched Kublai to the Dali kingdom in 1253. The ruling family, Gao, resisted and murdered the Mongol envoys. The Mongols divided their forces into three. One wing rode eastward into the Sichuan basin. The second column under Ögedei took a difficult way into the mountains of western Sichuan. Kublai himself headed south over the grasslands, meeting up with the first column. With Ögedei galloping in along the lakeside from the north, Kublai took the capital city of Dali and spared the residents despite the slaying of his ambassadors. The Mongols appointed King Juanxingzi as local ruler and stationed a pacification commissioner there. After Kublai's departure, unrest broke out among the Black Jang. By 1256, Ögedei, the son of Subutai, had completely pacified Dali. After subjugating the Dali, Kublai sent a column south under Ögedei, the son of Subutai. Ögedei sent envoys to ask the Vietnamese for a route to attack the southern Song dynasty, but the Tran-Vietnamese imprisoned the Mongol envoys. In 1257, a Mongol column under Ögedei invaded Vietnam, then known as Dai Viet, along with his son and an army of 3,000 Mongols and 10,000 Yi tribesmen. They routed the Vietnamese army and sacked the capital Than Long, renamed Hanoi in 1831. Ögedei executed its inhabitants for the murder of the envoys. After staying in Than Long for a while, the Mongols fell ill due to the unfamiliar climate. Realizing that it was time to drive the Mongols out, the Vietnamese launched a counterattack and won the decisive Battle of Dong Po Do. To avoid further war, the Tran accepted Mongol overlordship, and Ögedei withdrew. The Vietnamese king Tran Tai Tong paid tribute to Ögedei, who had quickly evacuated Vietnam to escape malaria. The Tran dynasty accepted terms of vassalage and sent tributes to the administration of Mongke. To strengthen his control over Tibet, Mongke made Ögedei commander of the Mongol and Han troops in Yufan in 1251. In 1252–53 Ögedei invaded Tibet, reaching as far as Damksung. The central Tibetan monasteries submitted to the Mongols, and the Mongol princes divided them as their appanages. In 1252–53 Sali Noyan of the Tatar clan was sent to the Indian borderlands at the head of fresh troops and was given authority over the Karyunas. Sali himself was subordinate to Mongke's brother Hulagu. Due to the internal conflicts of the Delhi Sultanate, the Mamluk Sultan Nasir-ud-din Muhammad's brother, Jalaluddin Masud, fled into Mongol territory in 1248. When Mongke was crowned as qagan, Jalaluddin Masud attended the ceremony and asked help from Mongke, who ordered Sali to assist him to recover his ancestral realm. Sali made successive attacks on Multan and Lahore. Shamaluddin Muhammad Khat, the client Malik of Herat, accompanied the Mongols. Jalaluddin was installed as client ruler of Lahore, Qajar, and Sidra. In 1254 the Delhi official Khusru Khan offered his submission to Möngke Khan and accepted a Mongol hierarchy. When he failed to take Delhi, Khusru turned to Hulagu. In the winter of 1257–58 Sali Noyan entered signed in strength and dismantled the fortifications of Multan. His forces may also have invested the island fortress of Bakkar on the Indus. When Mongke called a Kurultai to prepare the next conquest in 1252–53, the Sultanate of Rum and the Toluid dynasty of Mosul were subject to the Mongol Empire. The Ayyubid ruler of Mayafarikan, Malik Kamil, and his cousin in Aleppo and future Sultan, Malik Nazir Yusuf, sent envoys to Möngke Khan, who imposed aragaches, overseers, and a census on the Daubak area. Some sources say the Ismaili Hashashin's Imam Alauddin dispatched hundreds of assassins to kill Mongke in his palace. Shamsuddin, the chief judge of Qazvin, had denounced the menace of the Ismailis. Hence, Mongke decided to exterminate the sect. Citation needed. Mongke ordered the Jochid and Shagadid families to join Hulagu's expedition to Iran and strengthened the army with 1,000 siege engineers from China. Mongke's armies, led by his brother Hulagu, launched an attack on the Ismailis in Iran, crushing the last major resistance. By the end of 1256, the Hashashin Imam Ruknuddin requested permission to travel to Karakoram to meet with the great Khan Mongke himself. Hulagu sent him on the long journey to Mongolia, but once the Imam arrived there, Mongke criticized his action and dismissed him. Ruknuddin was killed in uncertain circumstances. For the Abbasids, envoys from Baghdad attended the coronation of Mongke in 1251 to come to terms with the Mongols. However, Mongke told Hulagu that if the Caliph al-Mustasim refused to meet him in person, then Hulagu was to destroy Baghdad. Hulagu then advanced on Iraq, taking the capital at Baghdad. In 1258, Hulagu sent Mongke some of his war booty with the news of his conquest of Baghdad. Mongke dispatched a Chinese messenger to congratulate him for his victory. Outraged by the attack on the caliphate, Malik Kamil revolted, killing his Mongol overseer. Hulagu's son Yoshumat invested Mayafarikan and executed Malik Kamil. From there they moved into Syria in 1259, took Damascus and Aleppo, and reached the shores of the Mediterranean. Fearing the Mongol advance, the Ayyubid Sultan Malik Nazir Yusuf refused to see Hulagu and fled. However, the Mongols captured him at Gaza. In 1241 Torigin Khatun had sent an envoy to make peace proposals and discuss Zayan of the Song. The Song court arrested the envoy and imprisoned him in a fortress with his suite of 70 persons. The envoy died, but his suite were detained until 1254. That year the Mongol army attacked to take Khokhcuu but failed. The Chinese freed the suite of the late envoy to show their desire for peace. Mongke concentrated all his attention on the conquest of the Song dynasty. Taking personal command late in the decade, he captured many of the fortified cities along the northern front. In October 1257 Mongke set out for South China, leaving his administration to his brother, Arakbok, in Karakoram with Alamdar as assistant, and fixed his camps near the Lupan Mountains in May of the following year. He first attacked Song positions in Sichuan and took Boning in 1258. Mongke forbade his army to plunder civilians. When his son accidentally destroyed a crop in the field of the Chinese peasants, Mongke punished him. On February 18, 1259, Tsagan Sa, the Mongol New Year feast was given by Mongke near the mountain Chunk. At this feast his relative, Togan, a chief of the Jalai tribe, declared that South China was dangerous through its climate, and that the great qaγan should go northward for safety. Barachi of the Urlat tribe called this advice cowardly and advised Mongke to remain with his army. These words pleased Mongke, who wished to take the city nearby. The Song commander slew his envoy who had been sent to ask the city's submission. Mongke's siege of Hekwin, was prolonged. Meanwhile, Kublai was laying siege to Keng, and Oyankada attacked Quangzai and then went on to Hunan. During the second year of the campaign, the weather became extremely hot. Many of the Mongol soldiers suffered from bloody diarrhea, plagues, and Möngke Khan became ill. Death. While conducting the war in China at Dio Fortress in modern-day Chongqing, Mongke died, perhaps of dysentery or cholera, near the site of the siege on August 11, 1259. His youngest wife, Chubai, died a month after Mongke at the Lupanshan Mountains. Mongke's son Asutai conducted the corpse to Burkhan-Khaldan, Mongolia, where the late qaγan was buried near the graves of Genghis and Tolui. Once again the worldwide campaigns of the Mongols came to a sudden halt. Several different accounts of how Mongke perished have been recorded. Some reports indicated that he died of cholera, Persian accounts assert that he died of dysentery. Armenian historian Hayton of Korikos says that Mongke was on a Mongol warship that sank in the Chinese seas while the Mongols were besieging an island fortress. According to a Syrian chronicle, Mongke is reported to have been killed by an arrow shot by a Chinese archer during the siege of Dio. Citation needed. Another Chinese account, however, tells that he died of a wound caused by cannon fire or a projectile launched from a Song Chinese trebuchet, while the Mongolians covered up the story by claiming that his death was due to illness to maintain their soldiers' morale. While Mönch left a will declaring that the town should be massacred once taken, its siege continued for another 17 years before the defenders surrendered themselves to Kublai Khan, who promised to spare the lives of the town's residents. Mönch's death in 1259 led to the 4-year Toluid civil war between his two younger brothers, Kublai Khan and Arakbok. Though Kublai Khan eventually won, the succession war essentially marked the end of the unified Mongol Empire. It was not until 1304, when all Mongol Khans submitted to Kublai's successor, the qaγan Temmuraljitu, that the Mongol world again acknowledged a single paramount sovereign, and the authority of the late Khagans rested on nothing like the same foundations as that of Genghis Khan and his first 3 successors. When Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty in China in 1271, Möngke Khan was placed on the official record of the dynasty as Xianzong, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Pinyin, Xianzong. Foreign influence in Karakoram. In 1252–53, Flemish missionary and explorer William of Rubruck saw Hungarians, Russians, Germans, and a Parisian goldsmith, Guillaume Boucher, in Karakoram. He even heard of Saxon miners in Zungaria. Foreigners such as a woman from Lorraine, mastered the making of the Mongol gurs. In 1253, Mönch deported households from China to repair and maintain the imperial ordos. He decorated the capital city of Karakoram with Chinese, European, and Persian architectures. One example of the construction was a large silver tree, with pipes that discharge various drinks and a triumphant angel at its top, made by Guillaume Boucher. Foreign merchants' quarters, Buddhist monasteries, mosques, and Christian churches were newly built. Markets were in the Muslim sector and outside the 4 gates. Chinese farmers grew vegetables and grains outside the wall of Karakoram.